Drink it in, drink it in, drink it in, man.
It is picked off by the line. Darius Slay's got it. Coming back right side, 25. Picks up a block at the 30. Darius at the 40.
Drink it in, drink it in. Drink it in, drink it in, drink it in, man.
Rolls to the right. Stafford throws deep. Got a man out there. End zone. Caught. Touchdown, Detroit Lions. Marvin Jones.
Stafford! Drink it in, drink it in.
Touchdown, Detroit Lions. Cornbread.
Stafford! Drink it in, drink it in, drink it in, man.
Detroit Koolaid. What is going on, everybody? Friday, right here on the Detroit Koolaid Cast. And on Wednesday, we had to talk about the Cowboy loss. We had some quick hitters where we talked about the crowd that took over Ford Field. We talked about our 94-year-old owner. We talked about injuries. We hinted on TJ Hawkinson, and we talked about some crazy stuff that's going on Twitter today. I got the one and only Grifka here on a Friday. Grifka, what's going on?
Oh, man, I do. Thank God it's Friday, but, I just want to let everybody know, for that big snowstorm and cold breeze we got last week, man. Man, it was almost 50 degrees here yesterday, man. I'm starting to wonder what time of year it is. I mean, is it springtime, football season, getting ready for summer? No, it'll be cold here again at some point, but, it's supposed to be a nice weekend in the 40s.
Grifka over here talking about nice weather when last time I checked, I got snow everywhere almost all last week till the end, which cleared up just in time for the Michigan Wolverines to put that beat down on the Sparties of East Lansing. I love that. And like I said, our Lions are still struggling, but Grifka, we got no news and notes. Let's get right into this Washington game. The Washington Redskins are a terrible football team. I even had to call in a certain buddy to help us out with this game. We might hear him a couple times during the show. I mean, the Washington Redskins are...
That's terrible. That's terrible.
They're terrible. Thank you, Charles. But our Lions are also playing bad and are all beat up, so who knows what's going to happen in this game. I'm sure hoping for a dub, even though I root for that draft pick when all is said and lost.
Yeah, my biggest thing with this game is, so far, it seems like, I know, well, you kind of teased it before, we might talk about it a little later, the defense making, I threw out there on Twitter, it seems like this defense is making, every opposing quarterback look like a Hall of Famer. And, Dwayne Haskins.
So real quick, I got to break in on you. Can you put out a positive tweet at some point before the end of the season? I get so sick of seeing nothing from you and then seeing one garbage tweet. If we score a touchdown, can you tweet out wow, what a great throw, or hey, Kenny Galladay's a beast, or just something halfway decent for me? Can you do that?
Sure. I mean, yeah.
It'd be nice. Every time it's you just killing the team on two things at the end of a game. Drives me nuts.
But yeah, okay, no problem. But anyways, I'll do that for you.
Everybody watch if he does it, because I bet you won't. I bet you we'll see nothing from you and then some tweet after they lose a game.
Okay.
Just how bad everything is.
DKC, believe me,
Hit
everybody will
hit him up.
Yeah, we'll be something positive on Sunday, even if hey, the Lions are wearing their blue jerseys today or white with blue pants. I don't know. Whichever
Twitter,
color scheme you heard.
Get after this guy until he's positive. And you don't have to be positive when they do crappy things, but just don't sit there and let everything positive go. All these touchdowns, Bo Scarborough playing well, Kenny Galladay balling out, and then you wait till the end of the game and go, just one tweet. It's usually one or two tweets that are just the one thing that cost us the game or why we're terrible. It's what about all the other good things? I mean, like I say, overall, it's been a down year. Don't get me wrong by every measurable, but I mean, a little positivity from you on Twitter would be nice every once in a while. That's all I'm saying.
Okay. Well, I'm positive that the Lions defense has been playing poorly enough that every opposing quarterback's looking like a Hall of Famer. So, Dwayne Haskins, he hasn't been doing that great since he's taken over the start. I didn't realize it's only been a couple weeks. They weren't happy with, what I think was Colt McCoy was starting or whoever. I couldn't remember who was starting there in Washington, or Case Keenum, or I can't remember. So it could have been
Yeah,
anybody.
one of those scrubs. Yeah.
Yeah. So they went with Dwayne Haskins, and we all saw him at Ohio State. He was like, he didn't have to run a lot, but he was throwing the ball all over the place. And Washington thought that would just translate to the pro game. He hasn't done not that great so far this year, but what do you think the Lions are going to do? Still think they're going to run their basic, rush 3, drop 8, or do you think they might have some surprises? Maybe blitz a little more, try to confuse this rook.
I'm overall like a Dwayne Haskins fan, to be honest. I feel like he's had moxie since he was a freshman there at OSU. We had to see him throw, came off the bench and threw a couple credible throws against our Michigan Wolverines. That still hurts me, but I think this kid has had moxie ever since he was young. He's, not a great athlete from a running perspective, but he can sling it around the yard. And the biggest thing everybody says with him right now is he's just nowhere near where he needs to be from a mental perspective and even a work ethic. There's been talks about how he doesn't work hard enough. He doesn't know how to lead. He, is pretty far behind when it comes to knowing NFL defenses. So I feel like all those type of things are going to show up on Sunday. But yeah, if we just have no pass rush, I don't see why this guy isn't going to be able to wing it around to the Terry McLaurins. They just got Darius Geis back, who's a guy that I think is a heck of a ball player when he's healthy. Everybody wrote him off because he's had a few knee injuries, but he's big, he's physical, he can run down your throat. So I would hope the Lions would do a little more pressure as well as try to frazzle this guy, because we've seen in college, if you just let Dwayne Haskins stand back there and throw slants and crossing routes, he can do some damage. And the Lions have got torn up on slants and crossing routes pretty much the last 7 games or more. So that does not bode well, I don't think. But, you can't let this guy get off, no matter how bad your defense has been. It's got to be a good day for the Detroit Lions defense in this game, you would hope.
Yeah, Dwayne Haskins, like you said, it seemed like he's been a little behind. One of the greatest NFL memes I've seen so far this year after he's played is it was like Dwayne Haskins throwing the ball, and as the pitcher's going, it's like morphing into Jamarcus Russell, and it just made me laugh. But I think it was one of those
I don't see that at all. But anyway,
it's still kind of funny. But I don't know who put it out there. It must have been like a Cowboys fan or something. But still, you have to admit that is sort of funny. But I think maybe at some point, a lot of it was he was just better than everybody else. So he could just use his talent, where the NFL, everybody's good. So, maybe just, he doesn't realize how much hard work it takes to be a good NFL quarterback.
If you had your choice, would you rather be going up against Case Keenum's old sorry ass, or Colt McCoy's Rudy Poo candy ass, or the young rookie with a burr under his saddle that's been getting beat up named Dwayne Haskins?
I guess I'd rather be going against Dwayne Haskins, because at least the other guys have seen, more
really
defenses. But
I'd rather be playing the Rudy Poo or the Jabron. I mean, I feel like I wish they would have still been in when we come into this game, but we got to deal with not only the rookie but the running back, and the rookie has his college receiver too, which, like I said, once they get cooking, Terry McLaurin's already shown that he's a good football player. So once they get their timing down, I think that's going to be a dynamic duo.
Yeah. Do you think Adrian Peterson's going to do anything on Sunday? I mean, he used to kill the Lions when he played for Minnesota, but I know there was even a little bit of talk at the trade deadline. It's oh, maybe the Lions could get Adrian Peterson from Washington, or do you just think he's just kind of out there for the paycheck right now?
Griff, do you remember the podcast? It was probably only had to be maybe our 5th show, or just right as we got going. And it was that year Adrian Peterson was a free agent. I think he was just come off the Cardinals or something. Everybody thought he was washed up. We had a big discussion about do you think he's got anything in the tank? Because we, of course, needless to say, the last 2 decades, the Lions have had no running back worth a dang. So it was maybe Adrian Peterson has 2 to 3 years left, I think is what we discussed. It's why would you not give him a decent contract? He's a pretty good athlete. He still has a little bit left. And, I want to say, without going back, finding that and listening to it, that either both of us, or I know I was more on the like bring him in here. Even if he's a part-time guy, to me, it was well worth the gamble. And sure enough, the guy's been good the last 2 to 3 years when healthy. And I just think that's one of those misses where we just outthink it and overthink it and think that everybody's got to be 21, 22, 23 years old or else you can't put him in the backfield. This guy's tough. He runs hard. I mean, I feel like now he's at the real back half, so I wouldn't really want to add him at this point. But yeah, 2-3 years ago, I think he would have been a great fit for the Lions. Probably really helped us in the run game, but not so much anymore. I mean, he'll probably have a few flashes against the Lions because we've been hit or miss on the run game all year. But I think, overall, I'm worrying about will they give Geis more carries and then the passing game more.
Yeah, I remember that conversation about Adrian Peterson. It's like I think the Lions almost had that fear of they flashed back to like Emmitt Smith, like when he left Dallas to go play Arizona, and everybody's like, oh yeah, and nobody could really understand it. We're like, what's Arizona thinking? And
right.
I don't know if the Lions thought the same thing out of Adrian Peterson, but he still had a little bit of tread left on the tires. And you're right. And like NFL is no longer the workhorse. Some guy gets 25 carries, 30 carries a game. Everything's split. Split backs nowadays. So yeah, you probably could have really helped 2-3 years ago. And at this point, you're right. At this point, he'll have a couple nice runs here and there, and he's the guy I wouldn't want on the team right now compared to what the Lions have.
The main
now.
reason I vouch for him is he's a physical specimen. Like even now, when he's way past as far as his years, he looks way better than anybody else we got in a jersey in the running back room. You know what I mean? Like just from a size, the way he runs with that physicality. Like sometimes that's what you need more so than other things at the NFL level is that just that ability to be a top athlete, have the bulk, the ability. Like we're just getting all these scat backs, and I feel like Peterson, even in his later days, and he showed it. He gets downhill, and when he gets cooking, you got to give him probably like 10, 15 plus carries. But once he gets that, I mean, he can churn out a hundy and a touch. Still can do it. So we'll see. We may see him Sunday. We'll see.
Yeah. Let's flip over to the Redskins defense and. Now, Detroit's offense, that hasn't been the problem all year, even with, Driscoll being in there. The Lions offense is still doing, pretty good. I mean, against Chicago, they were a little stagnant. Even the last game, people were like, well, you only threw him for 200 yards. But still, Driscoll had his moments where he looked pretty good. The running game was still, nowhere near where we'd like it to be. But is there anybody on that defense you think the Lions need to scheme for? I mean, they got Josh Norman at cornerback. He hasn't seemed to be as good as he was. And I think that Montez Sweat, he's a linebacker. The coolest thing he has right now are those Old Spice commercials that kind of look like political commercials.
Right.
So anybody on that defense you think that offense needs to kind of scheme for, game plan for?
Do you want to rep your boy Montez? I mean, that was your guy throughout the whole draft process. Now you're dogging on him and don't like his commercials? Really?
No, man, I think that's a very clever ad, actually. It really is. I do say those
my last name.
those ads crack me up, man. They really do. It's just a clever thing, especially when they got Von Miller in there. It's like Von Miller like Sweat. Show them like standing together. How it's just it's a great ad. Kudos to whatever ad company came up with that, because those commercials make me laugh.
Grifko, we got to take a 2-minute pause for commercial talk right now. So some buddies, we were chatting about funny commercials a few days ago, and I was like, what makes me laugh for some reason every time is the one where the two people are in Sam's Club and they come across the chef working the fajita line and like and they start making fun of him or like goofing on him, and then the guy goes to grab a sample and he goes, use a cocktail stick. And the wife goes, yeah, use a cocktail stick. Like it just makes me laugh every time. So I threw that out there. Everybody was laughing, and then everybody was like, what's another good one is the Geico commercial where they're in the horror movie and they're like, what should we do? Why don't we just get in the running car? And like, what? What a stupid idea. Let's go hide behind the chainsaws. And then the clutch part about that commercial is the ending where like the guys right behind him and they go, run to the cemetery.
The best thing
So
I
good.
like about that commercial is like the guy's right behind him, and like the girl goes, "Will you stop breathing on me?" like that's the biggest worry right now. You know, like
Right.
some
Or
maniac's chasing you down. And you're like, "Will you stop breathing on me?"
or the hot blonde that when they say go behind the chainsaw, she's like, yeah, it's a great idea. Perfect. Oh, those are my
Let's
two
run to
faves.
the
Geico, and use a cocktail stick. I don't know. It's just the way the lady says it that I laugh every time.
It's not a buffet. I'm bumping into Gordon Ramsay. It's like my buddy texted me on that, and he's just like, that's what he texted me. It's not a buffet. Use the cocktail stick. I go, that'd be pretty cool if I went to Costco and there's Gordon Ramsay making fajitas. I'm like, that'd be awesome.
And it's like such a disjointed, like none of it makes sense, but it's funny, and then you remember that it's about like Sprint or something just because it makes you laugh, and it's on like 50 times every game that we watch. You know what I mean? It's like the most played commercial ever. So yeah, incredible.
I had more fun talking about that than talking about this Lions Redskins game. So
well, you real quick, you asked me about the D. Like to me, I don't know any of the rankings, but like to me, I know they have a few pass rushers when it comes to Kerrigan, Sweat. You know, they have the Alabama boys still in the middle. But past their D line, like I couldn't name you one really of their linebackers, the corners. Like everybody always brings up Josh Norman. Is it just me, or was he good like 4 years ago? And ever since he gets toasted all day, a day. So Josh Norman worries me not in the slightest. I mean, if anything, Kenny's just gonna beast him all over the field. So I mean, they may have some decent rankings when it comes to run stuff or just their overall points against, but I feel like this is a team that can be had. It's just, I think it's going to be in my fantasy football article on Thursday. Like, I hate their field. We talked about it in our preview. Like, I guarantee it's going to be sloppy field. They're going to be slipping all over the place. Like, ball's going to get out, you know, on some type of fumbles and tip balls. Like, it's just what happens when you go to Washington in freaking late November.
Yeah, I have to agree with you there. I mean, it seemed like a while ago, like Josh Norman was like one of the best, you know, cornerbacks in the game. We're like, oh man, wish we had him. Now this guy is just like everybody picks on him, and he doesn't make plays, and you know everybody who like leaves Washington just bashes that organization. And you know, I mean, you know, hey, you know, we're not saying Quandre Diggs didn't do that either, but still, it seems like I don't know if this is a worse place than Detroit, but there's nobody on that defense. Just like, gosh, you really got to watch for that guy, you know, except Sweat because he sweats, and you know nobody likes Sweat. So
right, it's my last name.
Greatest commercial.
Use a cocktail
Von Miller
stick.
likes Sweat.
Why are you breathing on me, Montez?
He's just dripping sweat, man. Make it look like he's
this
he's
isn't
in a sweat house. Awesome.
This isn't the best for my dog rankings that I have, but when Josh Norman was in Carolina, when he got signed by the Redskins, he was a dog, in my opinion. Just a nasty cover corner, get up in your face, make plays on the football. He's definitely not that anymore. So, like you say,
he's a dog, but he's a dog player. He's just like,
yeah,
he ain't a dog.
D-O-G, not a D-A-W.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, so well, let's put a bow on this. We all talked about like the Redskins. We know what the Lions have, and we're going to cover them here a little more in a couple seconds. But why don't you give me a final score on this game?
Oh man, the Lions are struggling. Washington is terrible. Thank you, Charles. I'm not going to go to the soundbite again. You know, I think this is just a game the Lions offense, you know, does what they have been doing, which is put up, you know, low to mid 20s. Defense keeps it together a little bit, frustrates the rookie, probably 24-17 Lions. Sloppy game. W for the Lions, and nobody will give us any credit because they'll say you should have won, you should have blown them out. You know, Mike Valeni will go on a big rant about, oh wow, you won. Why didn't you win by 40? Well, it's the NFL, man. They won a game. Who cares? Like, it's gonna happen, and then, you know, I'd love to see him get this one and Turkey Day, but you know, we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I'm going really back and forth on this game. I mean, gosh. I'm afraid it's going to be like, oh, the Dwayne Haskins coming out party, oh, blah, blah, you know, and the Redskins don't have much of a running game, and, you know, McLaurin, he can get downfield. The guy's got a little bit of speed, and I know everybody was busting on Slay after last game. Why didn't you get the 2 picks? I mean, I think they're going to just put Slay on McLaurin, and he'll be able to at least keep him in check. So, and Driscoll's been he's been playing pretty good. He's been moving the ball, and I still think the Lions have more offensive weapons, even with their lack of a running game. I mean, Washington's running game isn't it's not like it's John Riggins or anybody back there. So, gosh, like I said, going back and forth. Still, I mean, I think the Lions are probably going to put up maybe I'm going to say 20 points for the Lions, and I'm going to give the Redskins, I'll give them 16. Lions win this one, 20-16. I mean, they could lose, but I'm going to put some faith in them this week.
There you go. And here's a Griff Cabell for that John Riggins blast, which only 10% of our audience understood who you're talking about.
Cool. So, hey, John Riggins, man, that guy was a beast. Go watch this film. The guy was a beast. I know we kind of teased it last show, and as we were going through covering stuff, but one thing I really, really want to touch base on, was this defense. And one thing that just kind of has been bugging me, I'm one for, I read Twitter, I read people's comments, on, different websites, and a couple different people, actually put, wait until Matt Pat gets his players here on defense. And all I could think to myself was these are his players. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. Maybe only 1 or 2 of those guys on that starting defense were here before him, Slay and Ashawn. I can't remember when they got Aquara. If that was one of Bob Quinn's signings. Well, Caldwell was still here, but right off the bat, I think he was. Aquara's only been here for a few years, and I think he was actually here when Caldwell was here. So, but Ashawn and Slay are the only 2 guys on that defense that weren't here. That Quinn, and so when people are wait till he gets his guys, these are his guys. That drives me freaking bonkers. And I just come on, I can't. I'm stammering, thinking what are these people watching? He's not recruiting. All these guys' draft picks, signings have been done by Bob Quinn, and I'm sure Matt Pat, he's putting his 2 cents in there. And what's driving me nuts about it is if you step back and look at this defense on paper, it's not like it's a bunch of washed up names either. And yeah, they got some young talent. Will Harris is struggling at points, Tavai is struggling, but they're rookies. Okay, I can live with that. Walker, he's been in and out, nicked up like you said, but Slay. I mean, everybody, you didn't do that. Darius Slay's not Deion Sanders. He's not. I know that. But, cut the guy a little slack. I mean, Melvin has his up and down games. Coleman has his up and down games. Tavon Wilson, back there, he's a guy that, played with Matt Pat, knows the defense. He has his up and down games. Flowers been playing better of late. Now with the injury, I don't know how extensive it is, the one you had mentioned earlier, if he's going to be hurt. But what's wrong with this defense? They got, wait till he gets his guys. What guys? They're his guys. It just drives me nuts. Help me here, Derek. Help me. Help me put my hand up. What's wrong with this defense?
Oh my gosh, Grifka, as I often do, I'll get to your question here at some point, but I got a few issues. First of all, I think I just put a pot roast in the slow cooker while you teed up that question, done and ate it by the time you pitched it to me. So there's that. Also, you mentioned Twitter. You did promise the people you will put out at least one positive tweet between now and Sunday. Is that right? Be a first one ever for you?
Yeah. I put out positive tweets before just because you don't read them.
Yeah, I must have missed those. So, okay, we want to get that down again on paper. And now to your elongated question, which, and there was another great Grifka drop in there, which I'm going to have to get, which was something about bonkers, which I'm definitely going to get on the soundboard at some point. Okay. But when you're talking about, his defense, it's... you can just look at it on paper and say these are his players. My biggest beef is that, everybody knows when you're a first-time head coach, there's transition period. They also know that when you're moving from one really successful team to a team that hasn't won, in 50, plus seasons, that there's a transition period. They also know when you're bringing in young talent, as you said, there's a transition period for those guys. So even if you look at all the names on the roster and say like, well, all these guys weren't here back in these are drafted Bob Quinn, Matt Pat type guys. Most of them haven't been around, and even the ones he has brought in, Flowers, Daniels, Coleman, these guys, they don't even have a season under their belt with this team. So I'm much more in the names are different, and the roster construction is different, and it is on their image. But it's not like we've been sitting around with 2-3 bad seasons from these players that people are ragging on. People are calling out these rookies and first-year free agents. Let me see a year too. And if the same guys are struggling, if Justin Coleman's having great games and then getting roasted and toasted like your boy Mike Ford is, then we got issues. If Trey Flowers is still just a blah type of D end, he gets some sacks but doesn't look explosive, maybe we got more to talk about. But I think he now does pretty much have his team. He's going to add to it in free agency in the draft. And as we hit on, I think on Wednesday, name me a impact player that hasn't been hurt this year for not even just like a quarter or a little bit, like games, multiple games. We can't get Slay, T-Walk, Daniels, Hand, Flowers all on the field at one time, and that's our defense. That's the core of our defense right there, along with Tavai, Davis. You know what I mean? Like, give me even 85% of those guys on the defense for multiple games, and I'll know more what we have. But I feel like this whole year, even though the names are Matt Pat and Bob Quinn's, you have not seen their vision of what this defense would, and what I think they will be in year 2 and 3, as long as they're given that chance.
Yeah, I see your point, but one thing that we've talked about it, and I kind of hinted at it before, is just Rod Marinelli gets all this love down in Dallas, like, oh, he turns like all these average defensive guys into great defensive linemen, and Matt Pat's supposed to be like this defensive genius, and I got it. Yeah, okay, you're right. Slade's been hurt at points, Walker's been hurt, but this defense is historically crappy. Okay, it's bad. And then, like, really bad. And, they struggle with the pass. They struggle with the run. And he's supposed to be a defensive genius. Rush 3, drop 8. I saw this. My buddy, as we were doing our podcast for Wednesday, my buddy actually, sent us this blip that Dak Prescott actually said.
What did your buddy do? Come on.
He pinged me and a group of us, and it said Dak Prescott. And his quote was like, "I had so much time back there, I went through my progressions twice." There was one play actually, and I've seen this not only in the Cowboys game, other games where they rush 3, and the defensive line's obviously getting no pressure, and they're just like standing there, and like the quarterback, it's like, come on, man, give me a break. What are you hoping that the quarterback runs right at you and the offensive line falls down? Come on, this defense is bad. And your defensive genius coach, everybody's like, oh, everybody's buying into it. The defensive line's just standing there after like 2 seconds, like, okay, I'm not going to get to him. Yeah, come on, man. That's like guys that he's brought in, to say that. And you're right. Some guys haven't been on there, but those are guys that he's brought in that are just like, oh okay, I'm double teamed, I'm stopped. Okay, stop working to get to the quarterback. So
yeah. But my thing with that is, is that scheme or is that talent? Like when everybody calls out Matt Patricia on this genius that isn't getting results, like, do you think he told the guys to rush for 2 seconds and then just stand there or get stuck to their block? Or is that these guys aren't physically there yet, whether it's the current guys, the backups that are out there, whatever it may be? Like, I don't know that you see some of that when they're firing the way they hope to when it comes to talent, as well as I'm not here to tell you that I think it's finished. I'm not saying roll this defense out in 2020 as constructed. They need not only a couple more pieces, but a couple blue chip pieces. I keep saying on Twitter, like, I don't want a couple guys. I want some playmakers added so that, now you got the foundation, you got some of the edge setters. Okay, great. Now go get me a guy that can get 15 sacks. Go get me a guy that, and like, I'm not in the camp that thinks Trey Flowers can't be that guy. I feel like he's just not that guy right now. And okay, Matt Pat was a defensive guy. He won championships. He won division titles every year. Like, he didn't forget how to coach defense. It's just not working right now. And I don't think it's a scheme issue. It's more so talent. And it's also, it's an unfinished product right now. As much as I even said it was the best roster we've had. And, that's proven me wrong when it comes to depth, as well as just, like I say, injuries killing it. But could they really bounce back in 2020 with a couple key pieces and 2 years in the scheme? I think so. But, people are getting really impatient, and I feel like it's talent, not scheme right now.
Well, let me ask you this. You mentioned how maybe a couple of blue chip guys, another draft class, and let's see, another free agency period. And you said, a couple blue chip guys. What do you feel? I mean, you mentioned a guy that can get 15 sacks, get his quarterback 15 sacks. So you said a couple. What major positions on this defense would you really, if you were looking for that blue chip talent, give me a couple spots where you would really like to see those guys, not just go sign a guy, but like, okay, this guy's a dog, like you say. What couple positions on that defense would you be looking for that blue chip talent to fill?
Yeah, it's a good question. And Grifka, if you'd listen to the Detroit Koolaid Cast when you're not starring on the show, I did a bonus show with my buddy Stefan, and we talked about this topic for a good 10, 20 minutes. What does this team need? And I know you're focused on the defensive side of the ball, so I'll start there. What I said is that I'm so sick of trying to get by with Darius Slay and nothing else. Okay, they did pay Justin Coleman a lot of money. I feel like overall he's been decent in the slot. But until you get another guy that's either elite or above average that can also lock up on the other side of Slay, you're going to struggle in a passing league. So corner to me is still a big issue. They've never spent a first round pick on a corner since back in the days of Westbrook and some of Terry Fairs of the world, right? So to me, that needs to be addressed, to pump up Slay while he's still in his prime, while he's still good. Give him a running mate, not say, okay, you cover one guy and then we're Swiss cheese on the other side. And even in the slot, we're still not where we need to be. So that was my thing on defense. And then my other big thing, what does this team need? Grifka, I'm tired of talking about the running game in Detroit. I said, go get me a big-time running back. I think you asked me a couple weeks ago, would you get Jonathan Taylor if he was at the right spot in the first round, or even if he falls the second round? Yes, man. I want to get a guy like that that's big and that has elite speed and can bang, and that you can pair with Kerryon, because I think a running game would help this football team control the ball, which is what they want to do. I think it would help the defense. And I think that if you can get me a cover corner and a big time running back to pair with Kerryon, I feel like those are the two pieces just off the top that would get us over the hump more so than, a rush player, maybe a cover linebacker. Like, yeah, I want those two, but those are my first two shopping lists, is a top corner and a running back.
Okay. Linebacker. You need a linebacker who's speed and can cover. Sorry, That's what you need. Kennard is a great, he's a great puzzle piece. I mean, he's not a star, but I like what he brings to the table. But Christian Jones isn't the answer. Tavai, I think he's maybe a tackling machine, but I think he's too slow to cover. I really do. And everybody on this podcast knows how I feel about Jared Davis. I don't think that guy's ever going to be able to cover anything. I mean, so
you got to use your coffee table line. Come on.
Yeah, he couldn't cover a coffee table. I mean, he could guard Venus DeMilo, and Venus DeMilo is still going to haul in 5 catches for 60 yards. Okay, I mean, so give me a break.
My biggest issue with the linebackers, though, are they're all the same. All of the guys you named are big, bulky, hold the edge type linebackers. So yeah,
exactly.
We do need a
guy who can cover.
Right. I'm with you. We do, but like when you're saying it's not at the top of my list, because I feel like those guys are more readily available than an elite corner. Like, I'm tired of taking corners in the 3rd, 4th, 6th round. Go get one in the 1st or 2nd round that's actually good. Same with a running back. You can find one in the 4th round. Really? Because I'd like to just take one at the top of the draft and be done with this. So I'm tired of it. Like, I know the analytics say wait, but I'm just saying Jonathan Taylor's there at 10. Just give him to me, and I'm moving forward. I'm just sick of talking about a running game for 2.5 decades now. You might want to add a top player, and that might put it to bed.
Well, part of the running game is also having an offensive line to blow open some holes. So, maybe you go get a left tackle who's actually like a stud, as opposed to like, jumping on, or I'm sorry, false start, or like, hey, Driscoll, here comes Robert Quinn. Oh wait, never. Oh, sorry. Oh gosh, never mind.
I thought you get that on Wednesday, but I'm glad you did some Taylor Decker bashing here on a Friday, because you avoided it on the previous show.
Yeah, he deserves it. He needs another blocko tattoo because he can't block a damn thing. So. But anyways, the linebacker position. A linebacker can cover weak side. Kennard at the strong side, I'm fine with. Tavai in the middle. He's not a 3-down back, and he doesn't belong trying to cover a running back out of the backfield. They need a weak side linebacker with some speed, not Christian Jones. So.
Yeah, I'm with you. I mean, I think if they find one or both of those this upcoming year that can really play, could make a big difference. And I sure hope so, because I feel like there's other good pieces, but they're missing a couple of those pieces that really expose the whole thing. Like, there's really nothing wrong with rushing 3 and dropping if you had guys that could drop and hang with people, or could make plays on the football. Instead, we just have guys that are middle of the road that are just getting roasted in dropped coverage, and they're not communicating great either, because I think they're still new to everything. So in year 2, there better not be some of this, oh, I'm passing them off. Oh, you didn't pick them up. Oh, I thought you had the tight end on the goal line. No, we got to get all that tightened up too from a scheme perspective. But get me some more talent, and also like get me a horse, on the offensive side of the ball. And I think it'll make a big difference. I don't think they're as far away as people think, but I'm also not sitting here telling you, oh, it's been a great defense. Or what's the issue? The one thing I did want to bring up, Griff, I know we got to keep it moving, is like you're saying this defense has been terrible. It's been like the last 7 games plus. Yes, they've been terrible. Remember last year, or remember this defense early this year? Like, we schemed up a win basically against Philly. Like, we were taking care of Kyler Murray with no problem for 3.5 quarters. We beat up on Daniel Jones, Daniel Dimes, as you love to call him, and the New York Giants. So they have put schemes together and have stopped top running back. So it's not like they have totally missed. It's just it was good for maybe 3-4 games, and it's totally fallen off. And we can't figure out why they can't get it back on track. Especially in the passing game.
Yeah, but you're right. For 3 quarters, they held Kyler Murray in check, and then they played really far off, and they came back to tie. Danny Dimes, they beat him up, but he still threw for over 300 yards and had 4 touchdowns in that game as a rookie quarterback in your house. So to say, to use those as your talking points, like they had some schemes. We went
into Philly.
I'll go with your Pat Mahomes. Though they shut him down. He had 3 touchdowns. He still threw for over 300 yards, and they just ran the ball in because they were inside the 5 all the time. And you're right. Philadelphia was probably their best defensive game all year, which I'm glad, because Philadelphia fans are jerks. So I'm glad they went into their house and beat the crap out of them, and they could boo their team because they lost to the Lions and blah blah blah. Screw you, Philly fans. You guys are morons.
Oh, I'm glad we got that in. I'm just saying that there has been times not only have they schemed it up, but they've played solid, and there's been a bulk of the season where they haven't, and we were calling them top 10 what they did last year. So maybe it's somewhere in the middle. They got to get back to that, because it's not acceptable right now.
I got this. I have one more question for you. I'm looking for a deep answer, so I kind of want to keep it moving. I know we have a lot of fun talking about the defense. So this kind of leads into the defense. You're starting to read all these articles, and I brought it up a couple weeks ago, and you asked me if it was a real question. Finally, some of your favorite reporters are starting to get on it. What's that?
I said that?
Yeah, because remember I asked you, would Mother Goose be the sacrificial lamb? You kind of laughed, and you're like, is this a real question? And I'm like, yeah, it's a real question. So obviously, your boys, Justin Rogers, Dave Burkett, listen to our show, because now they're finally writing the articles on this. But, everybody's like, oh, changes need to be made. Pascal needs to go. But I'm reading some stuff. It's just like, and I know it's fans on both sides of this. Some people are just ready to get rid of Bob Quinn and Matt Patricia and his whole staff and say, hey, we've given you enough time, get lost. And then there's like another faction of people that are just like, Okay, give Bob Quinn a little more time. He's doing pretty good in the draft. He's bringing some players in here. Maybe just one or two changes on the coaching staff. Not the head coach himself, but maybe get rid of Pascaloni and maybe like a linebackers coach or defensive backs coach. Just as like that sacrificial guy. My question to you is, what side of the fence are you sitting on? With this right now. I know you've said it a couple times, but talk some sense into those people that are like willing just like blow it up, start over again.
Now, before I get to your question, Grifka, I can't believe you'd accuse me of such a thing, but I think it's appropriate to do in this situation. Again, is this a real question?
Of course it is, man. I really want to know how you feel about this. Is it time to blow this up and go somewhere else, or at least get rid of Mother Goose? Or
No, I'm glad you asked it, and I think it's a real pertinent question when it comes to the fan base and everybody out there. So we'll definitely tackle it. I feel like the overarching sentiment among Lions fans right now is they're tired of waiting. They're sick of these losses. They hate this record. They hate looking forward, saying we got 6 games. Doesn't matter who we play, with no quarterback, no running back, beat up defense, a defense they can't cover. How are we going to win more than a couple games? Well, so they want to get rid of the head coach. They want to get rid of the GM, fire everyone, start over. Like, my thing with that is we've been there, done that. Has it ever given us these amazing results? Every time it's usually like a little spark of, wow, this is different, or this guy is the opposite of the previous guy, but it hasn't amounted to W's, obviously no playoff wins, no sustained success. So that's the easy answer for everybody to just sit there, fire everybody, bring in somebody new and shiny. My thing is, Bob Quinn's been here about 4 seasons or so, and people beat him up for his drafts and free agency. I mean, they rarely give him credit for Kenny, carry on, the meat and potatoes guys on the line that do end up being good. They just point out, that Decker's not playing as well, or Wagner isn't some stalwart over there. So I think he's done okay. My thing is, so he was here for 4 years. Then he brought in Matt Pat, said 9 wins wasn't good enough, whatever. Everybody holds him to that comment as well. I feel like this is really only year 1.5 of Matt Pat and Bob Quinn building their football team. So I'd give that more time. The thing I'm worried about is I feel like they're building the 2006 Patriots, where it's like, oh, we've always loved big linebackers. Oh, we like this type of defensive end. We run this scheme. Everybody seems to know their scheme. People say like, oh yeah, they were running, similar concepts, and they played for him like 8 years ago. It's like, hey, have we evolved this scheme at all? Is this like an unpenetrable scheme that just works for decades upon decades with no adjustment? Like, that worries me a little bit, but I feel like you have to ride this out, continue to show faith in these guys and say, I'm not going to give you a 5-year plan, but Matt Stafford's probably got about 2-3 good years left if that's who you want to roll with. I think I talked about on the other bonus show, like, maybe me and you talked about it too. I don't think just going and getting some crazy new quarterback is totally out of the question. I mean, maybe they just don't feel like Stafford will ever get him over the hump, even if they like him as a person and as a football player. Maybe they want to just go all out and get a QB here in the next year or so. But I say you see all that out, you give them 2 more years. This next year is a real make it break it. It's like, hey, you added to the team, everybody's healthier. We expect a playoff berth, as well as, a home playoff game would kind of be what you're looking for. If you don't get there, but you build on and show some positivity, then that next year in 2021 is basically it. It's like, I want a home playoff win for sure, if not farther. And if you can't get that done, we gotta go ahead and get some new people in here. It might be a whole rebuild at that point, but I think by that point, you're going to see a much better cohesive overall team. I think they'll add the pieces me and you have talked about, and it'll be much better if people can wait, the fans, the management, the owner. If they can't, I feel like we're set back another couple years. So that my take is to patience is a virtue. I know you don't want to wait, but wait a little bit longer. And if they can't get it done in a year or two, then I'm fine to move on.
Yeah, that's that's what I was looking for from you. I mean, talk some people off the ledge. I mean, it makes a lot of sense. And but don't get me wrong, I do see the other side of the coin. I mean, we both kind of mentioned there's some questionable things that Matt Patricia does that kind of leaves our heads kind of scratching. The way he the way he kind of uses the clock, the way he uses the timeouts, and some of the obviously the 2-point conversion try against Dallas and stuff. And so I can see why some people would want that. They want that instantaneous, the Sean McVay goes to the Rams and they're instantaneously good. But, look at them this year. They're obviously a lot better than what the Lions are, but still that team's not running up and down the field like it was last year. So obviously defenses have figured them out. I mean, so it happens. It's a scheme thing. It's this, you mention it all the time. This is just a league of adjustments. So, bringing the right people, I still believe that Pascal only has to go. I'm glad you hired your mentor. He gave you your first job, but you said if it's his scheme, he's the one calling it, then fine. Put a cardboard cutout of Homer Simpson out there if you're obviously going to be doing it. I mean, give me a break. I mean, don't try to use that, but do something. I mean, maybe it's one thing he needs to step away from it and just you manage the whole thing and not just focus on the defense and, get a defense coordinator. I mean, people are like calling for, Austin to come back as the defensive coordinator. And there's defenses he really had that were good. But then, that after Sue left and that whole defense left, I mean, his defenses weren't that great. And so people were ready to run him out of town. So it's just, the Lions fans are finicky. Everybody wants, instantaneously W's, like you said, next year they better be 11-5, man. You can't go 8-8. You can't go 9-7 and backdoor into the playoffs, and think this fan base is going to be happy because we've seen all that before. I mean, we saw it a couple times at Caldwell. So I think they need to change defense coordinators, or if he just got to be the one to say, like, I'm going to be the one to call it. I don't want to bring him up again because he's probably eating, greasy, chicken wings right now. But McCarthy did that with the offense in Green Bay. So it's like, you get rid of, I'll call the offense, as he's choking down some, lemon pepper chicken wings from Wingstop. But, maybe that's what Matt Pat needs to do. It's like, Paul, thanks for my first job. I appreciate we're still buddies, but I'm going to take it from here. There's the door.
Real quick counterpoint. This is something I'd like to, we've mentioned it before and you're like, oh, we got to spend more time on a show about that. Like, to your point about, 10, 11 wins in the playoff. And I even said, home playoff game. We've set all these bars, right? But I feel like the NFL is an 8-8 league. I feel like me being the Kool-Aid drinker of the bunch here always starts at 10, and works my way up. But if you're realistic about the NFL, any given Sunday, every week, everybody's good, right? So you don't just look at the Detroit Lions and say, oh, we're a playoff team. Oh, we should win a home playoff game. We just play the Dallas freaking Cowboys, who have stars all over the field, offense and defense and offensive line. And they're like 5-4 going into this game that they beat us. So I think people have to temper their expectations a little bit. Like, I want a good football team. I want good players at premier spots. But you don't just roll out of bed in the NFL and make the playoffs or win a home playoff game. You got to fight your tail off to get that done. So even though I set those same bars, I think fans got to be careful of just saying, like, oh, if you don't get this, we got to move on. It's like, that just doesn't happen in the league. You could be up one year and terrible the next. It happens every season.
Chicago Bears.
Right. Or us this year. We're terrible. Like, you don't think we could bounce back and win 10 games next year? Absolutely. Yeah. But you don't just roll out of bed doing it. You don't just get it gifted to you. You got to go out and do it. And I feel like they can, but just every year I hear this crap about, oh, and why are we not in the playoffs? Like, last time I checked, how many teams make the playoffs, Grifka? Like, 8 per division, like 16, so, or less than half of the whole league makes it, right, in the NFL. So it's like, it's not a gifted thing like it is in NBA or hockey or whatever. It's not as bad as, the sport we shall not speak of. But.
But I think everybody looks at the Patriots like, oh, look, how come they do it? Well, they win because they have a hell of a coach and they got Tom Brady. And plus, for the longest time, those other teams in that division just sucked.
Terrible.
I mean, let's face it. Oh God, look how many. You're right. For as for as many times as we joke about it. We rip on like, oh, this team, the Bears suck. Minnesota ain't that good. Green Bay, they're terrible. Face it. Those three teams are, for a number of years have been head and shoulders above what the Patriots have faced. And don't get me wrong, the Patriots are a great team. I love Tom Brady. I do. I know a lot of people hate him, but he's a Michigan man. I love Michigan. Belichick's a hell of a coach, but what the Lions have to face week in and week out is so much different than what the Patriots. I mean, the Patriots lost to the Baltimore Ravens. Everyone's like, oh, look, now they play a real team and look what happens. You don't think Bill Belichick's going to have a different scheme if they run into the Ravens in the playoffs? Do you think it's going to work out the exact same way? It might, but I bet you the game's a whole hell of a lot different. So,
or the counterpoint is if we're playing the Dolphins, Jets, and Bills for the last decade, you don't think the Lions would have had a couple division titles? Are you kidding me? Like, those teams have been awful for like 10 years straight. We've been in the toughest division for like 7 years straight.
Yeah, and exactly. And it's like one of those things, like the Dolphins are obviously in tank mode this year. I mean, how many years did you see the Jets go into like tank mode where they're not going to admit it? But it's like, yeah, we know you are. And even Buffalo, it's just like, yeah, you're 5 games in, you realize your team's terrible, so then you just go for it. Does it ever seem like Minnesota's just like, yeah, we're terrible, man. Forget it. We're just going to tank. Green Bay might have tanked a little bit last year, but still, they're Green Bay. And free agents are going to want to go there and play. And even Chicago last year, they got hot and they got full of themselves. And this year, I mean, their quarterback sucks. I've said it before. Mitch, Mitch and his milk bones. Dude, you suck. We all know it. But still, like you said, if Detroit had to take on those other three teams that New England has to play, we would have been waltzing into the playoffs a couple years ourselves. So,
right, Grifka, I know we got to finish this up. So your take is actually that you are preaching patience, because again, your 3 negative tweets a week have seemed to intimate get rid of Matt Pat. I'm sick of this. This team sucks. Like I'm very surprised to hear you take my stance, which is hang in there a little bit longer. Yeah, they got to be better. I'm not sitting here telling you the defense is great or hey, we're blowing the league away. We're having one of the worst seasons in my memory the last 5 years or so. This season's been terrible, but you're in the wait or like build on it type of space, because I definitely have not got that opinion from you when I've seen your tweets or talked to you.
No, my opinion on this is, for us, how bad as the offense was, and I was like, well, they need to switch offense, so they did. And now look what the offense has done. I think that's what they need to do with this defense, and they need to change something. Like you believe it's Matt Patricia's, and Patricia keeps saying that Pasqualoni, he's the one calling the defenses. Then if that's the case, then you need to switch defensive coordinators, because his defense is freaking terrible. I mean, he needs to change up something there fast. I'll give, like you said, year and a half, Matt Patricia, fine. I'll give you another year. I think when teams like flip coaches that quick, that's utter stupidity, but he needs to change defensive coordinators, something fierce. I mean, because this defense is historically crappy.
Yeah, I'm with you, but I just got after you before because I think if you think it's Pasqualoni going rogue, calling crazy, terrible defenses, and Matt Pat doesn't have the gall or the ability to change it or he's not in on everything going on with the team, you're missing it. So then people are like, okay, well then I'll blame Matt Patricia for how bad we are. It's like, I guess you can, but I'm going back to, again, talent, injuries, referees this year, as well as, year 1.5. Come back to me in 2.5 and this defense still looks like Swiss and we still can't win ball games. I got major issues, but not right now, and like not last year when people were calling, oh, he's a mess, he's a tire fire, he just doesn't know what he's doing. Really? It was like game 10 at that point. So like I say, I think it needs a little more time, not eternity, but more time, and hopefully we'll have this franchise quarterback healthy and ready to roll either later this year or next year. So that's my take. Like I say, if that's your take, then I need a little more, not only positivity, but also just, hey, it's a bad year, not expecting playoffs, not expecting a bunch of wins, but, you can see those positive points as well as, they better get it right in the off season. That's for sure.
Well, I mean, like you said, if he's the one, it's his scheme, it's my thing. You're a defensive genius. You better show a little more. And if you're like, nope, Pasqualoni, he's the one calling it. Well, then, he's making you look bad. And if you keep telling me, no, it's his scheme, he's the one, he's got his hands all over it. Well, then, Mr. Defensive Guru, your defense looks utterly terrible. But if you want to go to press conferences and tell everybody that it's your defense coordinator calling it, then you need to switch something up. You're putting way too much faith in that guy. So I realize he was your mentor and everything like that, and you're buddies with him. So you need to change something up. It's either your crappy scheme or your crappy coach. So.
See, but it's not though. It's not one of those two because there's football players that you have on the team. Like, again, we talked about it. If it's a great scheme, but you don't have the players or the players aren't executing, how do you think it's going to look on Sundays? I bet you it looks great maybe a Monday through Wednesday, but then we get to Sunday mornings and afternoons, it's not looking so good. So that's what I'm saying. Like, it's looked better to me when Hand's been healthy. It looked a lot better to me when T-Walk was firing on all cylinders, looked like a really up and coming safety. Another rookie linebacker there. So I'm trying to tell you and others that instead of focusing so much on the defensive genius, the scheme, this defense is terrible. Like, well, how has it looked when it's been more at full strength? And what do you think it will look like when all these free agents are in year 2? I think that's going to make the difference. Not that he's going to come up with some new scheme or, wow, I'm going to get on the headsets and change everything. It's going to come down to the players playing a little better and them adding to those players. Like, Will Harris is out there, but we all kind of know he's not totally ready as much as we want. We know Tavai isn't like an everyday down linebacker. They need to add to that. Again, push some of those guys down or move them around a little bit. And then the players will make the scheme better, not the scheme just making some average player tremendous. Tom Brady makes average receivers look great. They don't just scheme him into amazing things. That's my opinion. It's going to come down to players' execution, and then scheme and coaching and play calling is like 3rd or 4th on my list at least. But like you say, I know everybody sees it differently. So Grifka, I'm sure we could talk about it for days, man. Sounds like we're both hanging in there, going to drink that Detroit Kool-Aid. We're suffering through a terrible season right now. You got anything else for the people?
Nope.
Oh man, I had to go to a Grifka because we got to get out of here on a Friday. But we're gonna try to get a dub ski in Washington and come back next week serving up that Detroit Kool-Aid. So everybody get at Grifka DKC on Twitter. Tell him to be positive. Tell him not to quit on the team, which he usually does about the first quarter or so when something bad goes wrong on during the game. You can tweet at me at Derek Okrie, DEREK, OKRIE. I love talking football and love interacting with Lions fans as well as fans of the Detroit Koolaid Cast. So everybody, we hope you have a great weekend. Time to get a dub, put all this to bed, and get rolling for Thanksgiving. Thank you so much. Take care, everybody. We're out.
Pack the bag, start the plane. This game is over. It is over. What a comeback by the Lions. Drink it in, man.